a bustling city in the late 1990s. Officer Daniel Okoro was a dedicated member of the city police force, known for his unwavering commitment to justice and integrity. He believed deeply in the law and its power to protect the vulnerable. His reputation as an honest cop made him a respected figure within the community, but it also drew the ire of those who operated outside the law. Daniel had a loving family, a devoted wife, Grace, and their young son, David. They lived in a modest neighborhood, where community ties were strong. Daniel often involved his family in community activities, teaching David the importance of honesty and standing up for what is right. One day, while investigating a string of robberies linked to a local gang, Daniel stumbled upon evidence that implicated several corrupt officers. These officers were receiving kickbacks from the gang, allowing their activities to continue unchecked. Daniel felt a storm brewing. Exposing the corruption would risk not just his career but also the safety of his family. Faced with a difficult decision, Daniel wrestled with his conscience. He could either stay silent, preserving his job and protecting his family, or speak out, risking everything he held dear. After much contemplation, he decided to report the corruption, believing that true integrity required him to uphold the law even when it was uncomfortable. Daniel presented his findings to his superior, who was initially supportive but soon grew wary of the potential fallout. He advised Daniel to drop the matter, suggesting that sometimes, ignorance was bliss. But Daniel was resolute, convinced that the integrity of the police force depended on rooting out corruption. Word of Daniel's report quickly spread, and he became a target. Fellow officers, who once respected him, began to ostracize him. Whispers turned into threats, and Daniel found himself isolated. Despite the growing tension, he remained committed to his cause, determined to see justice served. As the situation escalated, Daniel noticed changes at home. Grace, initially supportive, began to worry. She could sense the danger surrounding Daniel and feared for their family's safety. "Daniel, please think about us," she pleaded. "This isn't just about you anymore." But Daniel's resolve was unwavering. He believed that if he backed down, it would set a dangerous precedent. He knew that corruption thrived in silence, and he refused to be complicit. As Daniel continued to pursue the investigation, the threats grew more serious. One evening, as he returned home from work, he found his front door ajar. Panic surged through him as he rushed inside, calling for Grace and David. His heart sank as he discovered their living room ransacked, the place filled with chaos. The reality of the threat hit him hard. It was a warning. That night, the police department organized a protective detail for Daniel's family, but he felt the weight of despair. Despite their efforts, he knew that no protection could guarantee their safety. One fateful night, after a tense week, Daniel received a chilling phone call. His worst fears were realized. Grace and David had been taken. The gang, retaliating against his integrity, sought to send a message. Desperate to save his family, Daniel launched a personal investigation while trying to work with his department. He felt the walls closing in around him as he navigated the treacherous waters of corruption within the force. The gang had powerful allies, and Daniel was not just fighting for justice but for the lives of his wife and child. The emotional toll was unbearable. Every day that passed felt like a lifetime. Daniel used every resource available, interviewing informants and piecing together clues, but progress was slow. He faced constant threats from both the gang and corrupt officers who wanted him to back down. After weeks of relentless searching, Daniel received a tip from a reluctant informant. The gang was holding Grace and David in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. With adrenaline coursing through him, he gathered a team of trustworthy officers and planned a raid. As they approached the warehouse, Daniel felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew that this was his chance to reclaim his family. The team moved in silently, weapons drawn, ready to confront the criminals who had caused him so much pain. Inside the warehouse, chaos erupted. Daniel and his team confronted the gang, and a fierce gunfight ensued. Daniel's focus remained on finding Grace and David. As shots rang out, he pushed forward, dodging bullets and navigating the maze of crates. Finally, he burst into a room at the back, where he found Grace and David tied up but unharmed. Relief flooded over him as he rushed to free them. "I'm here. I'm here," he shouted, holding them tightly as tears streamed down his face. But the moment of joy was short-lived. The gang members were closing in. In a final standoff, Daniel confronted the gang leader, a man he had come to know too well through the investigation. In a tense moment, Daniel had to make a choice: risk everything to take down the leader or prioritize his family's safety. In a split second, Daniel chose his family. He shouted for his team to retreat, prioritizing Grace and David's safety above all else. The gang leader laughed, seeing Daniel struggle between his roles as a protector and a law enforcer. As they escaped the warehouse, the gang leader vowed revenge, knowing that Daniel's integrity had come at a cost. Once outside, Daniel felt the weight of his decision. He had saved his family, but the gang would not let him go easily. After the raid, Daniel and his family were placed under protective custody. The emotional scars ran deep, Grace was shaken, and David struggled to understand the dangers surrounding them. Daniel was both relieved and tormented by the thought that his integrity had put them in such peril. As the investigation continued, Daniel was torn between pursuing charges against the gang and ensuring his family's safety. The police department's corruption lingered like a dark cloud, and Daniel realized that fighting for integrity was not just a personal battle, it was a systemic one. Eventually, with the help of federal investigators, the gang was dismantled, and several corrupt officers were arrested. Yet, the victory felt bittersweet. Daniel had paid a heavy price for his commitment to integrity. His family lived in fear, their lives forever changed by the events that had unfolded. Despite the turmoil, Daniel found strength in his family. They moved to a quieter town, away from the shadows of their past. It took time, but they began to rebuild their lives, finding solace in each other. The legacy of integrity. Years later, Daniel reflected on the journey he had taken. He had sacrificed much, but he had also inspired change. His story became a beacon of hope for those fighting against corruption within law enforcement. Daniel continued to advocate for integrity and transparency, speaking at community events about the importance of standing firm in one's principles. His family grew stronger through their experiences, learning that integrity comes with a price but also carries the potential for profound change. The legacy of his choices lived on, a testament to the price of integrity in a world where the lines between right and wrong often blur. Daniel Okoro, once a lone voice in the darkness, had become a champion for justice, teaching others that standing up for what is right, despite the cost, is a fight worth undertaking.